Hi, everybody. I know that behind the scenes, we're all like grooving with this music that Vanessa has picked for us. And I think Kathleen said it. I think it's going to be an earworm in our minds for a while. So as we get ready to go into this roundtable discussion, I'd like to bring on the panelists in the order in which they were seen, one at a time. And you can all kind of give them the silent applause for the great job they did. Ben Harding.
Hello. Thank you for having me back after yesterday.
That's right. Welcome back. Here we go. We're going to bring everybody on and all of a sudden we'll all be together. Jennifer Cook. Yay, Jen. Yay. Nikki McGrath. Kai Outerbridge. Woohoo, Kai. Good job. Patty Cobb Baker. Tim Workman. Kathleen Hansen.
What's up?
Yay. And the inimitable Michael Gellert.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You know, I just want to say right from the start, first of all, I'm going to thank the tech team again, but we're all going to go like this. To Sue Melvin and Vanessa Eklund, who have made this thing roll like smooth silk. This has been amazing to be in their care. I feel completely held. Very, very safe space. I just want to say to each of you that as I watched all of your presentations, what was so fascinating to me, especially because we all didn't really all know each other. I know Patty, I know Jen, and I know Mike a little, and I like a little tiny bit, Kai, but to watch the tapestry get woven the way that we laid the threads down from the very beginning of this, Ben, when you laid it down yesterday, right there, boom. And it went all the way through the thread, all the way through today's sessions with Michael, you wrapping it up in a beautiful artistic way. Where you got tears like Patty got tears yesterday as we closed everything out. So I just want to thank you all. What an awesome experience to just sit with you and sit at your feet and listen and learn from your expertise. So what we have is a rather good size sheet of questions. All right. And my thought is I will pose a question from, right now we're going to hit some of the ones that we didn't get to answer in any one of our individual personal sessions, but are really applicable to any of us. And like we did yesterday, I'll just kind of be noticing who's wiggling and we'll just go from person to person to add your input. I would say because we have a fair amount to talk about, we'll try to keep things, moving along and keep it kind of succinct and brief, if you don't mind, because I'd love to get as much juice out of this team as we can in the next hour and a half. All right. So Michael kind of triggered one of these questions that I think would be good to just hear real quick from everybody. What is your life-changing moment in regards to singing? What's a moment that you was sort of a key shift in your consciousness or shift in how you felt as an artist? What was something that defines you, or that you knew that at that moment you were going to be going down this path? Anybody who wants to? A Patty.
So you mean, when you're asking that, so you mean that shifted you to the way you teach, or are you talking about performance, or?
Either one. It could be, what was it that inspired you enough to bring you to this path?
To a new place. Well, I'll answer it a couple different ways. As a teacher, what brought me to my path was another teacher who was teaching a particular methodology that made my singing just so much more easy. And then she said to me, I believe that you would be a great voice teacher. Do you want to train with me as a teacher, to be a teacher? So that's because I was at that crossroads, you know, in my career choices. I was unhappy in the work that I was doing, and I was studying voice as I was wont to do. And she, her methodology just opened up my voice. It made sense. It just spoke to me in so many different ways. And then when she said, you can be a teacher, and I was like, yes, that's what I want. So that's what took me on the path as teaching. Now, as a singer, it was something that a coach said to me in terms of my singing and my performance. I'm not going to name the coach because what she said to me, some of you might think it might be a little bit harsh, but I was in the quartet that first won international. We were being coached. We had just been coached by a different coach, and my head, this technician that I had created as my persona, you know, this who was all about the technique and making sure we were doing everything that coach was telling us to do, and this was all sound related, was just all over my performance. And this coach turned to me and she said, if you keep doing this, you're never going to win. And I was like, oh, because what it said to me was that you're going to hold back these other people. Yeah. And you're also not going to achieve your goal. And it was at that moment, and I think I knew it deep down inside, because like it just hit me that I have to stop it. I have to make a change as a performer, as a singer, to stop clutching technique as it like that it's going to be the be all and the end all and the savior of everything that I do, and I have to become a performer. And that's where I have gone, and that's why my journey right now as a singer and a teacher is so much involved in the expressive part, the feeling part, and what it does to free the instrument and to free the voice. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, and the emotional body and the work you're doing, you know, even with the spirituality, this whole person. Yeah, awesome. All right, I saw I saw some fidgets. Ben, go.
I have some similarity to what Patty just said, because for me, as a teacher, it was another teacher. My very first voice teacher, who's no longer with us, her name was Shirley Salazar, one of the most beautiful humans I've ever met. And part of what made me interested in becoming a teacher wasn't that she helped me technically, though she did, but it was that she didn't. It was one of the first times where having sung, being a singer from a young child, it was one of the first times I was in a setting like that where I wasn't seen as a voice. I was seen as a person. And she really, she let me know that I was heard, that I mattered, and that she loved me as a person. And coming away from that, I wanted to be that for someone else. It was so powerful. It changed my life. As a performer, there's one particular moment where I was singing with After Hours in Toronto, 2013. We sang Come What May. It's not a perfect performance, but it's a pretty good one. But that was the first time I was on stage where I, through the help of a community of people, was able to step back and say, it's okay that it's not perfect. Just like Patty was saying, perfection was the enemy. It was okay to just let the song be what it was and to exist and enjoy in that moment. And those two were very formative experiences for me.
But you know, that's very interesting you say this, Ben, because I was in Toronto at that performance. And although I hadn't connected the dots that was you, because at that point, After Hours was not on my radar at the level it is now. But I'll tell you what, that performance moved me and my heart, because I had seen Moulin Rouge and I thought, wow, that was a great performance. So, okay, kudos. Woo, isn't this is yummy. Okay, I saw Kai move and I saw Jen move. And Nikki's moving too. So let's go. Jen, you have something you want to contribute?
Absolutely. I don't know if it was like one defining moment, but it was basically a series of coaches who kept encouraging me to stop trying to sound like other people, to start using my voice to sound like me, and that I was worth hearing. Like that was very, I don't know, it's just very fulfilling, very empowering for someone to say, you know, I love your voice exactly the way it is. Stop trying to mess with it and just let it be what it is. And yeah, it was pretty, it's pretty empowering. And I actually have to keep working at that quite a bit still, but I'm getting there.
Well, very interesting that you say that, because, you know, I watch what you've been producing these wonderful tags for people to sing along with you, you know,
Thank
on
you.
YouTube. We're all sort of following each other. And you know, my sense of you is that your voice, it just welcomes people into that warmth. Like the warmth of you comes through your instrument. So kudos. Good work. Good work. All right, let me jump to Kai first, and Nikki, then I'll jump over to you.
Yeah, I was sort of just saying, I remember that performance in Toronto as well. That was my first barbershop convention, and that's a very memorable performance, Ben. Yeah, I think it's I'm racking my brain trying to think of what that one moment was, but I think it's just a combination of moment after moment of just loving being in the moment of working with someone, or those rewarding moments where the singer you're working with just suddenly understands things differently, or suddenly is able to, suddenly it's just so easy for them, and all of those moments for as a teacher just sort of kept me wanting to learn more and become as good as I could possibly be at this. At the beginning of the pandemic, or yeah, I guess it was the beginning of the pandemic, I took my first lesson with a McCloskey teacher, and this was in that sort of stage where I was being very humbled and having to sing on my own in my room. You know, I've always been an ensemble singer. I don't like singing alone. I don't consider myself a soloist. But I remember that first lesson when suddenly it felt like, oh, I can make big changes to my techniques. I'm not locked in my current level, which I was having, you know, decent success with. But I was, it just opened up to this idea that you can improve, you can learn how to sing, you can learn how to do things that you couldn't do before. And after the lesson, I just like cried for 20 minutes, just being like, oh my God, what an incredible transformative experience I just had. And I want to do that, you know? So a bunch of little moments, but that was definitely a big one that I remember.
Yeah, and I think to the general panel, that one piece of it's never too late. Can we get a thumbs up? It's never too late, right? For anyone, no matter wherever you are on the trajectory for that kind of experience and that kind of possibility. As a matter of fact, I'll go to a question that will address that here in a second. So Nikki, go.
Yeah, also a collection of little moments, but I can think of like two really significant ones. In my formative years, I was a teenager, like 14 years old, and I was singing with a children's chorus called Gondwana Voices. And as a member of that chorus, I had the opportunity to perform multiple times at the Sydney Opera House. And I remember my first time going there and going into the green room and then being on stage, and I was just like, oh yeah, this is it. This is it. And also, like every music teacher I've had, almost, has just been so encouraging, and their belief, their encouragement, the joy that they've brought into my life, whether I fully realized it at the time or not, has been hugely influential. And I've heard lots of similar experiences in this panel as well.
Perfect. Kathleen.
So I agree with the sentiment that it's really been just block by block, a bunch of little experiences. And some of you, one of the early videos I made when this whole pandemic YouTube experiment started was talking about how to learn to love your own voice. And I told a story about when I was in school and I was an instrumental major, and it was class voice. And we had to, and I say had to because these were a bunch of people who weren't planning to be soloists, get up in front of the class and sing an art song, right? Multiple times in a semester. And the class was the teacher, first of all, was passionate and supportive and just very, very honoring of the space that everybody was in. And I got up and I sang, and I felt very average. I felt very average, and I'm like, well, I sang the words and the notes, and that's about it. And one of my classmates said, "You have the voice of an angel." And I was like, me? Like, what? Who are you? What's happening? And that gave me permission to look for the beauty in my own voice and be able to seek that out myself and seek that out in my students to build those little block by block moments, I think is so important.
Oh, that's awesome, Kathleen. Yeah, you actually I just teared up. I'm like, exactly. Tim, do you have a life-changing moment or a moment of really coming together?
I grew up, so I was one of those, singing ever since I can remember kind of kids. And I grew up in a house where my father listened to the Bluegrass Student Union and the Dealer's Choice and the New Tradition. Those were my three child quartets that I listened to nonstop. I learned every word. I used to say, I know every stinking bum in that song whenever there was a song that had bum bum bums from the bass. And just little things like, I mean, it was such a part of my life. It's crazy though. When I was a ninth grade, 10th grade, kind of moving through my high school years, I fully committed to a career as a soloist. And I think that's a very common occurrence for us as voice teachers, not because delusions of grandeur or anything like that, but we start to get to know our voices and we start to think, wow, there's really potential here. And so maybe we commit to that potential and see where it takes us. And of course, life had different plans for me. And I don't know what I was thinking because I'm obsessed with ensemble singing. I'm obsessed with singing harmony. It is the thing I want to do in my life. And I was here going on a road towards solo singing. And I really was slapped in the face at the end of my bachelor's. And I thought, what am I doing? I should be a choir director because everything that I love about music is tied into harmony, singing harmony. I do it with my children. I did it growing up with my mom and dad. We sang as siblings with my brothers and sisters. I mean, it's just my life. So and vocal technique is the thing that will help it be even better. So I want to know how to do it the very best I can.
That's awesome. You triggered a couple memories for me and something I want to just like add to the conversation, which is I consider myself a recovering soloist. And it happened, one of the things I realized when I was leaving Maui in 2019, after having literally 12 years of accolades thrown in my direction and really reveling in that because I'd worked so hard to get there. It was a 20-year journey. And I remember leaving and going, I'm lonely. Mm. And when I found, it makes me cry a little. When I found barbershop, even though I haven't yet found, I will say my quartet, the quartet that even though I haven't found that experience yet, the desire is in my heart and the love that I have of this music is in my heart to be in harmony with others. And I think that's part of the reason even for this conversation. But the memory you triggered that I think is even for me I was probably 13 or 14 sitting in the Bushnell Auditorium in Hartford, Connecticut for the Hartford show. And the Suntones were in that barbershop show. And my dad was trained under them. So when they came to Hartford, it was a big deal. And I remember hearing Gene Cockcroft sing Danny Boy. And I literally memorized his interpretation. And then when I was a pro, sang it exactly the same way. So yeah, oh wow, isn't that wild? Okay, so Michael, I'm going to come back to you before I go to the next question, because as you've heard everybody sort of sharing their moments, do you have anything else you want to add to your life-changing experience? Because you have definitely, you shared some really good stuff in that last talk.
Nothing here, Deverlyn, back to you.
Back to me. Okay, great. All right, so let's go to this one, all right, because I think this is really interesting. Is it possible to take voice lessons and really progress virtually during the pandemic? Okay, let's weigh in. All right, everybody's giving a thumbs up. So maybe let's speak to this a little bit. My thought is this. Zoom which I've been using since I arrived in barbershop because I was living in some place and I was working with people elsewhere. And I think because I had some students in Australia, and so it was like, okay, well, I'm just going to learn this Zoom thing, which I liked better than Skype. I don't know if you ever tried Skype, but I just remember that lag was like, drove me nuts. I find it very useful to do online work because you can record it. You can look back at a video. You can do it from the comfort of your own home, right? So does anybody else have yeah, Ben?
Well, I have been teaching lessons online for several years. This was not a new jump in skill set when this pandemic started. I know there are others on this panel in the same boat. So much of what is valuable of working online is who it gives you access to. I work with people from across this side of the world because they're looking for someone who does vocal technique and loves barbershop. And although there is a collection of us here, there aren't that many coaches, not really enough to go around. And so it gives you access to learn with all sorts of different teaching styles. But also, we've talked a lot over this weekend about singing for sensation, not so much for what sounds you make, but how it makes you feel both emotionally and physically. These are things that you can assess from 2,000 miles away with great clarity. So I have found that it to be a very effective medium. Plus, we tend to focus very well on the task at hand when there's just one big window on the screen. So I find I have less distracted clients when I work online than when we are in person.
Awesome. Anybody else want to just kind of, yeah, Patty?
I completely agree with everything everybody has said. There's that cost factor too, when you don't have to, if you're working with somebody in a different location, then they don't have to fly you in, or, they don't have that cost. But I have found that it's amazing the technology today that we're given in something like a Zoom and how clear the transmission is. But I do think that you do have to make a few little audio setting adjustments in Zoom to get rid of gaps in sound, that can happen over Zoom. And it certainly helps sometimes to have a good headset, maybe to connect into the with Ethernet, right, directly into your modem. But really, I don't even really find that I have to do that much with Zoom. With Skype, way back when, it was always better with the Ethernet connection. But Zoom is so good. You have to kind of like get your person up, and sometimes if you need to look at what they're doing with their body, you have to move them around and things like that. But it's all doable. It's a blessing to do it this way.
I'm just going to generally state, so I know that I do both quartet and individuals. Do you all do both? So
and I've done chorus, and I've done chorus
that's
too.
right. That's right. I have to. If they have the technology, it helps, right? The screen and that sort of thing. Anybody else want to contribute to this conversation? Like that now? Nikki, go ahead before Kai.
Yeah, I've actually switched from using Zoom to using a web application called Musicology. And so like panel friends, if you have questions about that, let me know. It uses a peer-to-peer connection, so it decreases the lag, and the audio quality is designed for music lessons and really, really effective for voice. So yeah, Zoom, Musicology, love it all.
Awesome. Okay, that's great to know, because I know that there was another one that's I think it's out of Japan. Someone just recommended to me now, interestingly enough, called Discord, which I think that's right. And somebody said it's fantastic. I haven't really checked it out yet because I'm so used to this platform. Kai, you were going to add something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, definitely Zoom lessons are super effective. It's even sometimes really helpful I'll have a student pin their video, and they can watch and see what they're doing, and I can sort of help them. They can self-analyze, and it helps to build the personal ownership of your technique in a great way.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Kathleen, did anybody else want to add to this one? Okay,
Same. One thing to add though is it has allowed us to figure out ways to sometimes use new words and new language to talk about sensation and talk about, like, tell me what you're feeling. And I think having that extra challenge words lead to understanding.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Okay, here's a big question. And it was put out to all of us. Will any one of you address getting your chorus back to singing in tune together after mostly singing alone? So coming back into the barbershop sound, coming back into higher level singing. All right, who's up? I saw Jen kind of look up. Do you want to go, Jen?
Honestly, I was just thinking about that. I don't know if I will be helpful. I've actually found, as my chorus has come back, we're doing 1 week in person, 1 week virtual, and of course, masked and distance and all that stuff. They are singing more in tune now. And I think it's largely because we've been singing a lot to learning tracks, and we've been working a lot on individual vocal skills. So I'm afraid I'm not helpful with like on the ground things that might help with that. But I will say, I'm finding that my singers are much more in tune than they used to be. And honestly, when we had the discussion yesterday about masking while singing, I think that's helping with their tuning too. I think they hear themselves better, and I think they're less. They hear each other less, which probably isn't a good thing. But for right now, it's helping them really think about what they're doing individually. So I know that's not concrete tools, but it's just an interesting phenomenon, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm going to circle back to the mask piece in COVID as well. But Ben, did you have something you wanted to contribute there?
Sure. The choruses that I have been working with who had a lengthy hiatus, the main thing that I'm seeing getting in their way for tuning is not their ears. It is just some techniques that have been sliding, and usually it's some of the most basic things where they've just gotten themselves a little out of alignment. They hunch more than they used to, which puts strain on the voice, or perhaps they're taking pretty tense breaths. If we make sure that everyone is taking the time they need to breathe and are finding a place where they're standing comfortably and not putting extra strain on their body, that's taking care of a lion's share of the tuning issues I've come across so far.
Awesome.
Just the basics.
Awesome. Michael.
Yeah, we've been back for a few weeks and we're singing in masks and singing so in tune. And a part of it, I think, is my energy. I've really increased my energy in the rehearsals, and I thought that has a lot to do with it. I was pretty bored sitting around for a year or two, whatever it was, and realized that the rehearsal time that we have is so precious, and that we don't know what's going to happen next. So that I'm really bringing in, everything that I have, and expecting, and they know that I'm expecting the best product that we possibly can give. So there's an expectation there, and there's a realization that, who knows when it, what's going to happen. So let's do absolutely the best that we can right now. Let's thrill ourselves.
Beautiful, beautiful. Patty.
So we talked about this a little bit yesterday, how one of the benefits in having been on Zoom is that a lot of our members have gotten more used to hearing their own voices, have become maybe a little bit more independent singers because they haven't had other people to lean on. And it's been interesting to hear a lot of reports from courses coming back live, how they are singing in tune. A lot of it's because on Zoom, we played a lot of learning tracks, which were in key, and they were singing to those. And so some muscle memory developed around that as well. But this person is asking the question, I think, because they are hearing some out of tune stuff with their course. So my response to that would be back to the basics, back to the basis. And I would start breathing. Start with just their breathing skills. I like what Ben was talking about. He made me sit up straighter when he said, the hunching over and all, probably some really iffy body alignment stuff has been going on Zoom. And just because the whole feeling of the world right now makes you just want to go like this, right? And protect yourself and fold inward. So just start with those basics again. Back to breathing. Again, good vocal production fixes out of tune singing. And so if you can just get back to that, those basics, breathing, space, all the good things we've been talking about this whole weekend, that's where you need to start.
Awesome. I'm gonna go Tim first, Kai, and then to you next, if you can hold. Tim, I saw him go up first.
Yes. So we all know that our technique can influence our intonation, our pitch, precision a lot. I do also believe that there's another piece to the puzzle that sometimes we're afraid to talk about as voice teachers, because it potentially could cause someone to hold in order to successfully accomplish it. And one of those is what it means to actually adjust our pitch or our tuning in micro steps to achieve tuning that is right. I believe it's a vocal skill that can be learned. So when you set up the body with correct posture, your alignment is right, and you feel like that breath coordination is working properly. To do sliding exercises, and I start with my choirs and my voice students doing sliding exercises between a half step that are actually quite quick, and they almost feel like a quick move or a step up, and then to slow those slides down. And I actually can start to train the vocal mechanism to make micro adjustments, which is what we're looking for when we actually are trying to tune. And then when I'm in choir and a chord is out of tune, I can actually ask them to make slight adjustments, and they know the sensation of making those adjustments because they've been trained to slow down that slide to an absolutely slow slide. I mean, the slowest thing you can make. And that's actually, you don't realize how many people don't know how to do that. I've asked students to do it, and they simply just hold the note in one pitch, and then just randomly go up. They don't know how to incrementally slide. It's a skill that can be taught. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. Kai.
That was great, Tim. I love that concept. Yeah, I think sort of three things. One is just sort of that vocal technique stuff that we've been talking about. Another tool that has been really helpful for my group is singing against a drone. I might have one or two parts sort of hold the tonal center, and then singing against that, you always want to know how your part relates to the tonal center. We've also experienced singing more in tune when we're just more connected with the message and the expression element, right? If we're just too in our heads about the technique, or too worried or afraid to make sound, that often will cause the tuning to drop. So we need to just be engaged with the communication element as well. So that's what I would add.
Awesome. Nikki, did I see your hand go up, or Kathleen? It must have been Kathleen. Go.
So I just want to echo the singing with the drone thing. You can sing against TE Tuner. I've got some cello drones up you can sing along with. And having something to lock onto, yes, number one, absolutely, vocal production, impacts tuning. Let's talk about registration. Let's talk about using the voice the right way. But from a listening perspective, singing into that sound, I particularly like cello drones because of the way they throw a lot of overtones, and you can kind of feel like it envelops you, and just put that on the background. And whether it's you singing an actual song or just up and down a scale, or as was just mentioned, drop down a half step and then feel what it feels like to come back in tune. Go up a half step, slide down and feel what it feels like to come back in tune. Love that work.
Sorry, I had a siren going by. All right, so all right, let's go on to, unless anyone have anything else that came to them while we were going through. Okay, Michael, anything? Okay, you're good. Back to me. Back to me. All right, so all right, this was a good one. Comparison paralysis, all right, is the catchword that comes up for me from this presentation. How do you approach the overachiever from suffering the not good enough or as good as their riser mates? How do we help in this
Snap out of it. Just kidding.
snap out of it. It's normal, right? It's normal to it's normal to compare. And I know that like Nikki was saying, that she works with singers that have injured voices. I have a few of those in my care as well, and I would suggest I have a few that have suffered emotionally in the process of trying to get control of their voice, try to be someone that can contribute in their chorus in a way that feels good to them emotionally. And I'm sorry, you add the effects of the pandemic on top of the emotional body, and there is a weight. I think that's absolutely for sure. So I deal with a lot of folks in my own studio that suffer from someone has said something somewhere, like Patty, someone has said something along the journey that has sort of been detrimental in its delivery, and they are now affected by that comment as they try to do what they really truly want to do and dream and achieve. Jen, I saw you shaking your head. Can you comment on this one?
I'm thinking about singers who have come to my chorus and have said to me, I haven't sung. I had one who said an elementary school teacher told me I couldn't sing. And she has a beautiful voice, a lovely, pure lead voice. And she sometimes sings tenor as well. It's just gorgeous. But this one, and all it takes is one person telling you you can't sing, or you shouldn't be a solo singer. And so fighting that, basically what some of my members have done is, first of all, they've joined us, which is awesome that they've made that step. And then finding ways just to empower them bit by bit, whether it's, hey, so-and-so, will you sing this couple measures for the chorus so we can sing along with you on Zoom? Or, can you just sing this phrase for us, little tiny bits at a time. So, and for you, if you're fighting that within yourself, just finding ways to do small, don't feel like I have to do a whole solo right now because I'm trying to get myself out of this, but just certain phrases, or volunteering to do certain things with your chorus or choir or whatever it is, that are shorter and allow you to, just allow you to find some power in your voice. And definitely taking voice lessons with someone who will build you up and just let you know how awesome your voice is. It's so important.
That's great. That's great, Jen. Yeah, Tim, and then I'll come back to you, Kai, because I think I saw you shaking your head.
So the concept that I was taught when I was in undergraduate choir was that we all have to be leaders and followers at the same time. And so we can't have people who are really, they've got all their ducks in a row and they know exactly what they're doing, like ahead of the game, right? Leading the rest of us and pulling the rest of us along, because it'll be out of sync and it will not be something together. And then those, of course, who are behind, they have to step up to the line. So leading and following is a concept that I was taught. And when I started directing my choirs, I realized that the mentorship student relationship is also a simultaneous relationship within our choirs, within our ensembles. In other words, you are at any given time a mentor and a student at the same time. And so if you don't feel like you're measuring up, there's somebody who needs your mentorship, needs your example in their life, in their chorus experience to be a better singer. And you need their mentorship. What can you learn from them rather than comparing yourself? Look for what you can learn from them. And that's how we do it in my choir.
Love that. Love that. Kai.
I love hearing Tim and Jen speak on this. I think Jen was mentioning before, I think in her intro yesterday, how important chorus culture is. And if you're a chorus leader, you should read The Culture Code, the best book ever. And if you're a singer in a chorus, make your chorus leaders read The Culture Code. The whole first part of that is just how do you make your singers feel like they belong, and how important that is to high performing organizations and cultures, right? That's so important. The the beautiful thing about choral singing is that we succeed together or we fail together, and everyone matters, and everyone needs to feel like they belong in order to make their best contribution.
Yes, absolutely. Michael, I'm wanting to come to you because I know from talking to some of your people how much they feel appreciated and loved in your chorus. Can you speak to this a little bit?
Well,
How do you do that? How do you make people feel so good about what they're doing?
well, I compliment them a lot. I mean, on purpose, but also because as I've grown in being a director, I also realize that they appreciate very much growing, and nobody is doing anything on purpose, incorrectly. When I first started with the chorus, I wanted to really impress them with how much I knew. And that was a long time ago. I grew out of that, thank heavens, and found that they need to know how much that I care about the chorus and and about each one of them individually. And so I do it very intentionally. I will find, you can always find what people are doing well. Even if there's a problem that they have, you can find what they're doing well. And so those are the things that I look for intentionally.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, Kai.
I just want to add on to that sort of complimenting idea. Another book recommendation is Mindset, and she talks about, the author talks about complimenting in a growth mindset sort of way, where we don't want to compliment the results. We don't want to say, hey, you won there, you won this, whatever the results. We don't want to compliment the results. We want to compliment the choices, the action, the decisions the singer made, the strategies they took. Bringing the positivity into that area gets us out of that sort of competitive sort of space where it's like, am I succeeding enough to matter here?
Yep. Let me go, Jen. Let me go to Nikki first, and then I'll come back to you.
Kai, I would love to get all of your book recommendations. This is awesome. I love what you just said as well. That really rings true for me with moving away from using like good and bad as descriptors of what we're doing, and using more value neutral language and talking about the things that we are working toward. When I was studying neurolinguistic programming, one of the greatest gifts that was shared with me by my teacher was this great little phrase that we can give to ourselves when that brain bully kicks in. And it's to acknowledge the thing that we are saying to ourselves, and by saying something along the lines of, hello, negative self-talk thing, I'm finished with you. I notice I'm getting better at, insert the thing that we're working toward, being really realistic and honest with ourselves. I notice I'm getting better at realizing that I'm a valuable member of this ensemble. That could be the first step. And I think when we tell ourselves these things, we go looking for them, and then we start to realize them a bit more as well.
I love that too. I think that we can't underestimate the power of repatterning the brain. That neural pathway, positivity, that feeling of, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can contribute here. Kathleen. Oh, I'm sorry. I said I'd go to Jen first. Sorry, Kathleen. I'll be right back to you.
It's okay. We're basically the same person anyway. So.
I heard that about you too.
Right. Yep. I just wanted to point out too that a lot of times musical leaders, we tend to be problem solvers. And so sometimes, or at least I noticed this in myself, I tended to be really general in my praise and really specific in my constructive criticism. And I'm finding that the more specific I am in my praise, that I think this was, you use these skills so well, and this is why, and this is what it did for you. Because before I was going, hey, great job. Now let's get down into what we need to fix. And so making sure you have specificity on both sides of the coin there really helps people analyze what they're using successfully and how they can continue to do that.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think even from the vocal teaching perspective, and that building on the skills of what is going really well, right? That's awesome, Jen. Kathleen.
Nothing to add, just yes to all of that.
Yes to yes. Okay. Anybody, anything else? Ben, do you want to add something?
I think that there's a lesson to be learned from our instrumental musician friends. The kind of the king ensemble in the instrumental world is the symphony orchestra. And if you think about orchestras you've ever heard, you don't really hear, unless they're being featured, you don't really hear a clarinet playing or a violin playing or a trombone playing. Instead, when all of these people are bringing their best to their instrument, it becomes this symphonic blend, a sound much greater than the sum of its parts. And so when I approach a choir, I like to bring that sort of mentality where it's not that because you don't sound like your section leader, that's not a detriment to your chorus. That's not even neutral to your chorus. That is to your chorus's benefit, that you do not have the same voice, because there is synergy that makes the sum greater than the parts that go into it. And I would say you can use a similar mentality for soloists when we look at the grander tapestry of those singing out in the world around us. Just if you're not singing harmony, you can still take that mentality of, I want to make my instrument the most like me it can be, and the world is going to be better for it, or my ensemble is going to be better for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, Patty.
Just throw in one other little way to look at this. Obviously comparing yourself to others is a very human thing, and it takes a lot of probably really serious training from a very early age to not be able to do that. But comparing yourself sometimes is a good thing. And I had a teacher once who said, and I can't remember, she had a name for it, but she said, when you are faking it till you can make it, kind of a thing in terms of your performance, have in your mind somebody that you really think is great as a performer, and then work towards emulating that so that you can start to feel what it might feel like to be in somebody else's skin rather than the skin that you're in currently. So it's not technically comparing yourself, but it is finding role models and maybe looking at it more of that way, not like I have to be that person. No, use them as role models, because that can literally help you move into a different level of performance, in that whole mode of growing into another level.
Absolutely. All right, everybody good with this one? All right, so let's go. So let's see, I want to go to some of the things that came up today too, as well as the questions. So let me just check this real quick. All right, how do you settle your nerves on stage? It takes my breath away. Stage fright is real. Okay, so, okay, Nikki, let's go to you first.
Oh, this is okay. Music performance anxiety. It is a thing, my friends. And I've run workshops about this before, but you know what? I would really recommend checking out Donya Metzger. Donya Metzger is an absolute gem in this world, and I'm a huge fan. And she has run sessions talking about something called Polyvagal Theory, and I'm a big fan. And I'll share like the TLDR.
I was going to say, yeah, can you give us just a tiny bit?
Didn't read.
What does that mean?
Yeah, like the thing is, we're often taught to like breathe deeply to calm our nerves. However, breath work can actually trigger trauma. So it's not always what we need. Some of us benefit from that. Some of us benefit from the Zen time, and some of us need to move. Like if your body is shaking and you're feeling that rush of adrenaline, friend, you got to move. You've got to call out. You've got to actually let that be. So listen to what your body is telling you that it wants, is like the best thing that I can share with you on that front.
Did I see your hand, Jen? Or was it Pat?
I was just saying I'm one of those people who has
It was
to move
me.
around a lot.
There you go. Well, it's interesting. Someone gave me this little exercise, for pattern, right in the warm-up room, because, from my experience of walking, and when I say pattern, for those who are not barbershoppers, when we go to a competitive contest, it's like everybody starts to line up and start to move through literally the wings, if you will, of the theater, moving into position. And it's a little bit of a long journey. It's usually at the hotel to the venue to, right? And then sometimes you're in a bus on the way to that, right? And it was in the warm-up room that if you stood still and you ran in place with your heels lifted, but not lifting your feet, you're just literally like just with your heels, that especially as that adrenaline starts to come up, it like does that moving without you having to basically really move, like, building up a sweat, and the adrenaline kind of will recede a little bit. Anybody else have any tips on anxiety?
Can I jump in?
Here we go. Boom. Okay, got it. Okay, Kathleen.
So polyvagal theory, that's my jam. I've spent the last 2 years taking a deep dive into that. Number one, totally normal mammalian response. Like danger, it's your body saying, there's danger, and your body doesn't know the difference between there being a tiger behind you and being judged by your friends. So number one, I think, is getting over Polyvagal Theory by Stephen Porges. It's kind of nerdy. Hit me up about it. I'll talk to you about it. I've got workshops on it if you want to know more. But
put that in the chat. What is it again? Polyvagal Theory. What's the author?
Stephen Porges. So the thing that Deborah just talked about, which is engaging bilateral movement, side to side, left, right, will help reconcile that. But also, so I think two parts. Number one, recognizing that you're not in a life-threatening situation. And there is a game there of saying, it's okay for me to feel this way. It's okay that I've got extra adrenaline. I happen to have a chronic illness that in part is defined by actually having too much norepinephrine. So I have to go, oh, that's just my body making chemicals. It's just my body making chemicals. It's not going to prevent me from doing whatever. We don't want to stack on top of that a big, how am I overanalyzing what I'm feeling? So the other half of that is being more and more comfortable with yourself, being more and more comfortable around people, doing it more, finding, somebody said moments ago, finding instructors that lift you up, finding people to perform for that lift you up, that tell you over and over that you are safe, and that, like Ben said, if you make a mistake, like, it still can be a beautiful, musical, profound experience, and those things can all coexist.
They can all coexist. Okay, we got Michael and Tim. Mike, let me go to Tim first, and then Michael, I'll be back to you.
I agree with what Kathleen is saying about the frequency. I think that's a big part of it, that it's hard to recreate the experience of adrenaline producing fear factor. And like in our undergraduate voice performance or instrumental performance, the students every semester have to perform a jury, or there's a recital class that they just practice performing. And it's mainly to do that. But when you think about a skill set, and performing is a skill set, you really, twice a semester is not enough. It's just not enough. And we're trying to find experiences. I used to go out into this little corridor where students would walk back and forth in my undergraduate and perform with my back facing all the students who were going in and out of classes, because I wanted to have that feeling of fear and practice, see if my memory was really solid, or if I would start to forget, because adrenaline kicks in and it messes with your whole system. But I think repetition is a big part of it. Saying yes to performing as much as possible is so good for people, and it will start to reside, because your body will learn what that feeling is and stop being so afraid of it.
Yeah, awesome, Michael. And then I'll come back to you, Pat.
Well, I've coached many people going on stage about the things that they can do, and there's a list of things that I tell them to do about how they stand and how they breathe, and all of those things that they usually respond. But for myself today, nothing worked. I was in a panic.
You were today?
Yeah. Oh yeah, today.
Right before your talk?
Right before my talk. And then as I was talking, I kept thinking, as I start talking, I'll be okay. But what happened was I found that the more that I got into it, and I guess maybe it was the subject that I was just getting so passionate about, actually made it worse. So
Yeah.
I was I was fidgety, and I think the fidgetiness actually helped me. But so
Well,
I
just a little feedback for you. You didn't look fidgety, nor did I sense or feel any anxiety, even though you were feeling it.
then I got away with it.
You got away with it. You sure
Okay,
did.
so then
Great
so
talk.
then that's one of the answers for other people.
Well, exactly right. That to some degree, there is that little piece of what we're perceiving as our experience may or may not be how we're being perceived. I think I needed to go to Patty first, Ben, and then I'll come back up to you.
What, you just blew me away, Michael, with your comment, because there was no way that anybody could have ever noticed that you were. But I think it comes back to the answer, and in that, when you're doing something that you've never done before, which this panel, for many of us, we've probably never got up here with our peers like this and shared information. This may be the first time. It's scary. It is scary to, when you do something. When I teach a class that I've never taught in front of someone before, I'm a little nervous. How's it going to go? Did I include the right content? Blah, blah, blah. Because you want it so much for it to be good. But I totally agree with the repetition aspect of it, which was why I raised my hand in the first place. But what I think is really, because when I first started singing on the stage, and for me, after a few failed auditions, and I said, I don't like this. Let's not do this anymore. It was quartetting. And I remember my first quartet contest, I thought I was literally going to die on stage, And I said, whose idea was this anyway? But now it's like, I can't wait to get out there. But it took years of just doing it. But I think one of the things that was helpful for me in becoming more and more used to doing it and realizing that I wasn't going to expire after a performance on stage is to place myself in practice in positive performance opportunities. In other words, I created the performance opportunity. Let's get together, everybody, beforehand, and let's rehearse on stage our performances for a loving audience who's going to get out there and just cheer and say you're fabulous, and also have the voices of reason out there, like your coach, who can come back in and say, yes, let's make these corrections, blah, blah, blah. But create those opportunities. That's what recitals are about. That's what showcases are about. And you can put those together yourself. You don't have to wait for somebody else to do it, or you can go find them. And I think us as teachers, we need to provide those opportunities as often as we can for our students, so that they have a positive performance opportunity to do that repetition in.
And just to add something to that thought, this last year, as part of my certification training of helping people understand these mechanics, I added a performance track where I had 10 singers that were all pretty anxiety-based kind of singers, come together like this, together as a team, and 4 times in the year, they all came online and performed for each other. And what was so it was something simple that we all could do. And what was so fascinating is that the trajectory of their growth in their confidence and their moving through the anxiety, if you look at performance 1, performance 2, performance 3, performance, they were different at performance 4. And they had a safe space, a little bubble of people that they could trust that were going to feed back to them positive. It was really impactful. All right, I'm coming back up to you, Ben. I'm like, where was I?
First off, I agree with every single thing that has been said here. This is so good. One of the things that I have found to be incredibly helpful in this area that I don't think has come up yet is the idea of extreme preparation. If the times I have had the most stage anxiety in my life were the times where I was least confident in the outcome of what was going to happen. And usually in those particular cases, that was on me, where I wasn't quite sure I had all my notes, or wasn't quite sure I had all my words. And granted, we don't always have the luxury of that good of preparation, but whenever I sing a set, be it as a soloist, be it in a competition or in a quartet or chorus, what I always do is put the song I am most confident in first, so that I have the most likely encouraging experience at the beginning, and it tends to put some of those jitters aside. The second thought is, I think Michael did something very important a few minutes ago that I think we all need to do more. And that's not just to say, these feelings are normal, this is natural, embrace it, go through it, but just to say, yeah, I feel it too. I've been doing this for 20 years, I still feel it. To let people know it's not just something that we cope with until we master it. This is part of how we're wired, and that's okay. That's good. It's part of being alive. So it can be scary, but it's also part of the excitement of performing. So see if we can turn the perspective a little bit on this whole idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it Kai? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one more thing that I want to add, which is I think this is not a quick fix, but something that it was helpful for me dealing with stage anxiety is becoming a better audience member, if that makes sense. You hear all the time people say, "Oh, the audience wants you to succeed," but for a while, until I, as an audience member, wanted every single person who performed to succeed, until I started being that good audience member, it was so hard to believe that the audience really was there for you until I was that audience member myself. So more of a long-term fix, but be a good audience member and want your peers, want your competition to succeed, and that helps a lot of the stage nerves go away.
Yeah, absolutely. Nikki, did I see you have a motion there? No. One thing, so let me add a piece from the bel canto camp on another piece of this question, which was, it takes my breath away. One of the ways that my teacher trained me, and he used to say, we spend most of our time in our preparatory, getting ready for performance on the subject matter. We will dissect the phrase, the words, the notes, the artistry, the interpretation, but we won't always spend that same amount of time on making sure we're starting our breath preparation from the ending of the previous phrase and all the time that we have to the beginning of the actual next one. And it's like a mile if you actually are mindful that your preparation is coming on the end of the phrase, not right before you begin the next one, right? And so I remember hours of practice of focusing on the breath, not on the phrase to come. And it made a huge difference. And that especially under stress, if you do that kind of mindful practice, when you get into stressful situations where we tend to want to run like wild horses, it can help you regain your breath within a very short period of time, or while the pitch pipe is blowing, that all you're doing is, I'm opening up my body, right? So anybody else want to add to that with the breathing and the preparatory? Okay, good. So
let me just say this, Deb.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of my favorite quotes of singers is, I think it was Ethel Merman. That's who it was. She was not my favorite singer, but she was definitely, I have a quote that's one of my favorites from her. It is, and her quote is simply, I breathe when I have to. So when you are having those feelings, don't worry about if you have to sneak an extra breath. I have on many a stage, and still won gold medals, taken a breath where it wasn't planned in the music. So, if your heart's going pitter-pat and you just need an extra breath, take it.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move on to some other questions. You guys ready? Okay. So people tell me I sing flat. Okay. This goes right alongside of, people tell me I sing flat. What can I do?
Those people should be shot, first of all.
We're all concurring.
Everything will be fine.
But, who wants to go? Who wants to, I've certainly seen the effects of somebody being told they're flat. And I know from the bel canto side of things, I'm going to this is a quote by Carrie Burns, the brain does not flat. If the brain is hearing the song, if the programming has been done, the brain is the person itself, the person is not flat. Something's happening in the process that's causing something to collapse that can pull down the pitch. Yes. But so what are some of the things we can do when those things happen? All right, let's see. Nikki.
There are a lot of people on this call, and I suspect a lot of us have had that experience as well. And like, I definitely have. And
being somebody being told
you're singing flat.
Yeah.
And you know what? I would love if we could all, and this could be a big ask, because for some people this could be a big change, but I would love if we could all commit to not uttering those words again. I think they are incredibly unhelpful. I think they're intended probably in a really positive way. I think there's good intention there, but it is not helpful. It is not going to fix it. And we come to cause and effect again. The effect might be flat singing. The cause is not that you don't know how to sing in tune. It's something else. And as singers, as teachers of singers, we have the great opportunity to learn how to distill cause from effect. And we get to work on the cause, not the effect.
Yeah.
I'll work with singers often who are singing under pitch or sharp or whatever. And that's not something we talk about. We talk about, all right, how did your breathing feel that time? Or how's your jaw today? Let's play with something else.
Absolutely. Awesome, Nikki.
Strongly.
Awesome. Yes, no, I think this is awesome. This is what this is for. Jen.
Nikki, I love that. And I think you're exactly right. Whenever I'm doing demonstrations of different things I'm doing vocally, and I can say, that may have sounded not quite on tonal center, but in my head, it sounded just fine. And it has to do with what we're doing with the mechanism. And as soon I've stopped doing this, I'm taking the pledge, Nikki, and I've stopped doing this a while ago, because I noticed when I said to my chorus members or a singer, you're under pitch, immediately they tense up. Everything tenses up because they're trying to lift that, and it just is so counterproductive. So I agree. It goes back to making sure, like I said in my class, making sure the mechanism is working correctly, and then getting out of our own way to allow that to work the way it's supposed to.
Absolutely. Tim.
So this is a minefield. I really do believe that I've had so many different approaches taught to me from previous voice teachers and choir directors. And right now, this is what I'm studying. I'm presenting at the Southwestern ACDA research project about teaching anyone of any age how to sing in tune. And a big part of the research is about audiating the pitch. And that's the ability to hear the pitch in your head before you actually sing it. And I can't remember who your quote was, Deborah. Who was that person that you just quoted?
Carrie Burns is a music judge in BHS.
Right. And the idea here is that monotone singers are a fraction of the population, like so few people who are actually truly monotone that cannot differentiate an up or a down pitch. And so to say that someone is incapable of singing in tune, or that, to say that they sing flat, it's not very helpful. And what I do is I try to do things to decipher how successful a student can audiate a pitch and recreate it. And oftentimes what you'll have is of course, the mechanics of the singing mechanism being able to prepare itself for that pitch that's audiating in their head. That's a coordination. That's a process of coordination that takes time. And so I'll do things like, if they play guitar, I'll make them bring their guitar and actually place their finger on the same notes that they're singing. And that physical movement actually will encourage their voice to move in the way that it should to sing. And then it's less about singing in tune, and it starts to become more kind of like a violinist. My wife plays violin, and she is always attentive to her intonation, moving her finger slightly to improve upon the intonation. And as vocalists, we can actually acquire that same kind of subtleness in our pitch perfecting efforts, and yet it's the long game. Part of the problem is that we have too much insistence, and especially in a competition environment that barbershop is, and other a cappella things where we are all about the competition. We have to be perfect. But it's a long game. Like, be patient with yourself, and being able to go outside, above the pitch, below the pitch, and then find the center of the pitch. There are more than just saying, hey, you're singing flat, fix it. What a terrible thing to say. Cellist, really fine cellist in my undergrad, was asked, how do you play so well in tune? And she said, well, because I believe it's always, if I'm out of tune, it's my fault. And it was her way of saying, I'm always insisting upon perfecting as good as I can. I never get to the point in my brain where I say, I'm done, I'm finished, I'm perfect, I'm in tune now. She just is always assessing her environment, letting her ears hear, letting herself hear. And singers, we can do that too, without getting tight, without getting pressurized and all of those other things.
Right. And that, like, mindfulness, like you talked about earlier, about the micro tuning, the micro, I'll never forget as I was coming into the world of barbershop, sitting down, and we're going to talk about equal tuning and just tuning. And then realizing that in the world of barbershop, when something's not quite in tune, if you go to the piano, sometimes you're still not in tune. So that this heightened requirement in the world that we're in, this world of barbershop singing, for high fifths and high thirds and things they're not natural, even if you've been used to just singing with the piano. So yeah, learning curve. Awesome. Ben, did you have a thought? Is that where I was seeing the movement here? Sorry, I was looking at Tim.
I don't know that I have much to add, though I love what is being said. I think, if anything, I would want to loop back to where Nikki started us, to say that I do find it incredibly unhelpful to point out a symptom and say, fix it. If the person either knew they were singing flat or knew how to fix it on their own, I believe they would already be doing it. So what's the point in telling them, hey, this? Instead, let's look for the cause and go there. So that I always look for cause and start there. And why even bother raising up that it makes you sound flat when you do this? Let's just say, hey, how's your jaw feel? How's your tongue feel? Do you notice anything grabbing? And
Exactly.
Very likely it's going to take care of itself.
Exactly. Okay. So I think I said, Kathleen, did I see your hand go up just a couple of minutes ago or seconds ago, or no?
I've been squirming a lot. Maybe that was
okay. Squirming's okay, because we're good, and actually we are 17 minutes away from the end of this fantastic conversation. I am just so thrilled. Yes, go.
I just wanted to say, though, that the reason I was squirming is the cello drones I was talking about earlier, singing along with the tuner, but also recording yourself. I've said to my students so many times, I wish I had the very first self-recording that I made when I became a chorus singer. I was like, here, learn your part, record yourself, because I did not know that I was singing that under pitch. And I didn't have the pedagogical background yet to figure out what was causing it, but knowing, like, oh, I actually need to do something about that. Like, it doesn't sound that way in my head. And learning to kind of disconnect and reconnect what I was doing from what I was hearing was a really important part of that journey. Because my brain was right. Like, I could hear the note that I was aiming for, but I wasn't doing it.
Yeah. Patty?
Yeah, I was just reading along with the chat, and Michelle was talking about she understands about it's not good for someone to tell you that you sing flat, and that can create tension and all kinds of psychological damage. But she says, I'm a newer singer, and if I'm off, I would like to know, along with tips on how to adjust. And I would say to you, Michelle, that lack of tuning can be caused, or that singing, quote unquote, under the pitch, can be caused by many things, many, many different things. So for us to give you tips right now would not be useful, because we need to know, like Ben was just saying, we need to know the cause. I was going to throw in what Kathleen just said. Recording yourself is hugely a huge learning tool. Now, because you're a newer singer, you're not going to necessarily know, okay, what kinds of adjustments to make. you just might be completely like, well, what do I do? Well, I had a teacher who taught herself how to sing this was back in the olden days when they were reel-to-reel tapes. She said, I listened to myself repeatedly, and then I tried different physical things to change the way I sounded. And this was before she had any training at all. You can do it that way, which is probably going to take you a while, or you can go have a voice lesson or just a PVI with somebody in your course who can say specifically, because sometimes what's going on is in the music. There's traps all over music that can affect, what happens with your voice, that you may need to make some adjustments, or just maybe how you're using your instrument. So you got to look at the cause, and it's going to be different. We can't give you just random tips because they may not be helpful. Get some feedback from someone who's knowledgeable about these things.
Yeah, that's probably a good place for us to wrap this piece up here. Now, here's my thought. We have about 14 minutes total, and I'm wondering if it might be a nice thing for us each to go back, and maybe we'll do it in order of appearance, just to go back and for like a minute, each of us just speak to some of the stuff that we really feel is important to this conversation about studying, being with us. What are we bringing to the conversation? Something from your presentation or from that you feel has not yet been brought up in a question that we could bring to the table as sort of a way of wrapping this up in a nice bow for people. So, all right, now Ben, I will go to someone else if you would rather not go first, but you willing to jump in? Something that kind of pulls this together after everything we've done this weekend.
I'll come up with something. I can't guarantee it'll be good, but I'll come up with something. I think the bow that I put on all of this, which I do think we've come back to a few different times, is there is no one right way to sing well. There are many ways to sing well, and there are many ways to teach singing well. So if you are in a situation where you are wanting to improve your skill, find a way to sing that feels better to you, find a way to sing that is more fulfilling for you emotionally, I encourage you to reach out to somebody that is on this panel. I know that we would all be delighted to work with you. As far as the rest of this conversation, when it comes to how COVID has affected things, how our choruses interact with all of this, how we individually improve, my encouragement to everyone is to major on the majors. Remember the most fundamental aspects of your breathing, the way you stand, the way that you hold or do not hold tension in your body, and just focus on making singing feel good. And you'll have a more fulfilling, enjoyable time while you do it. And that's what it's all about.
Awesome, Ben. Nice wrap up there. How about you, Jen?
I think something that has struck me as I've gotten to sit through, see many of the presentations, not all of them, but that all of us have been talking about freedom in your voice, sounding like yourself, allowing yourself to come through your voice. And I want to keep encouraging you all in that. And also the fact that coming back from a time where you may have not sung as often as you would like, or in an environment that maybe not, be singing alone a lot, give yourself plenty of time and space to get some of those skills back, or just to remind yourself of some of the things that you've done before. And definitely be easy on yourself. We tend to be hard on ourselves as musicians a lot of times, and impatient with ourselves, which I'm pointing like 4 fingers back at myself right now about that. But so I just want to encourage you all, make sure that you are striving to have your voice be as free and open as it can be, that you're sounding like yourself, you're patient with yourself, and that you are communicating with others in a way that connects you and helps you reach some of those next steps that you would like to in your musical career.
Awesome, Jen. Now let's see, Nikki. No, wait, let me check. Yes, Miss Nikki.
Hello. Yeah, you know, one of the things that I've most appreciated about this time together, Deborah, is the opportunity to hear from very different practitioners. There's a lot of commonality, but there are also some really notable differences, and I'm celebrating that about us because as people, we're all different. We all learn in slightly different ways and pick up things differently. And as singers, that means we have a wonderful opportunity to learn through different practitioners with different styles. So that's been one of my favorite things as a singer, is learning from different people with different methodologies. And I think this is a great showcase of that in our community. And I know there are many more wonderful practitioners out there too. So if you're watching this, and you feel like a little sparkle feeling or something inside you from things that you've heard from different people, reach out to them and see how else they can support your singing practice.
That's awesome, Nikki. Hi.
Yeah, I love what's already been said. This has been such a great couple of days, and it's so awesome that all the attendees are here. Just the fact that you're here shows that you're interested in your voice, learning and seeking out growth and change in a beautiful way. And what better panel to learn from over these last couple of days. I'll sort of echo what Ben and Nikki have said about, you know, take the plunge, get a voice lesson, right? Like all of us here, if you heard our stories at the start of this about why we're voice teachers, a lot of them, almost all of them, have to do with those life-changing experiences of getting feedback on our voices from an awesome teacher, right? It's so life-changing for all of us, and it can be life-changing, a really life-changing experience. If you're struggling with anything related to singing, like it's really just the best way to grow and tackle whatever's getting in your way. So I'll just say that, and say again how thankful I am to be here learning from all of these wonderful people and getting to share some of my ideas with all of you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kai. Thank you. Patty.
Well, again, I was looking at some of the comments, and one of our attendees said that, you know, she mentioned several things that some coaches had said to her, and she's like, well, what do I do with that? And what do I do about that? She said she figured it out eventually, but it took her years of not giving up. And there it is. You don't give up. Remember, the whole theme of my presentation was, this is a lifelong journey of learning about this instrument and how to play it and how to be in it and what it can do and all of the beauty of it. It's a lifelong journey. Never, ever give up. And what somebody said earlier, it's never too late. Ask, seek out, you know, there's so much help, especially within our organizations. We're so blessed to have so much talent that is there to help you. The other thing I wanted to say, that another quote, and I don't know who said this, somebody, probably some Greek person a long time ago, you know, about the questions that this person had. The teacher arrives when the student is ready. And so also remember that there may be times when if you don't get something, it's because you're not ready. But if you stay open to the learning process about all of this, that teacher's going to show up. And I don't mean literally somebody, you know, sitting on this panel or you're even a voice teacher. It could be somebody in your quartet or somebody standing next to you on your risers or your director. That teacher's going to show up. But as long as you stay open to the journey, stay open to the experience of learning, you'll learn. And so be there with that open heart, that open mind, and it'll all make sense someday.
Absolutely. And the thought that the word came, beginner's mind, you know, the book Beginner's Mind, that if we all lived in a state of beginner's mind all the time, which I know many of you do, it does make a difference in how we perceive our world and how we perceive ourselves in our world. Tim.
I have learned so much, and things that I'm going to be applying tomorrow. in class. It's going to be great. I can't wait. See, I love when I can gain a whole bunch of new tools and go pretend like they're mine. No, I'll give you all credit, I promise.
I was applying stuff this morning.
But I will say that I love what Patty is saying, being open. I think the process of learning how to sing is so much of an experimentation process, and being prepared and willing to make ugly sounds. Well, what someone else might perceive as ugly, but they're not ugly because they're part of the journey. And to make awkward sounds, to make unpleasing sounds to your ear, to your body, have things not go right for a time. It's all part of the stepping stones that lead you to finding your voice. And it's a wonderful thing. I always tell my students, if you ever see me singing in the car, if you drive up next to me, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to be intimidated by you looking at me. In fact, I'm going to roll down my windows and go after it. And that's a big part of it, being prepared. In my home with my children, we sing everything. We sing our sneezes, we sing our groans, our moans. Everything is interactive singing. And I love it so much. And also what Michael was saying, don't be afraid to say what you're thinking in your head in terms of appreciation and love for your students and those around you in your courses. We think the thoughts and then we think, oh, they already know it. I mean, that's the worst possible, it's a tragedy. So say it. When you think it, say it. And don't be afraid to encourage those around you, because that's what we're lacking. And that typically is what will stop someone from experimenting, is that they don't feel loved enough, or that they can trust the environment enough. And I mean, you can almost say anything to anybody if they feel love from you. So
Wonderful, wonderful, Tim. Kathleen.
So when Deborah just said, okay, everybody, you get a wrap up, I made some really quick notes, and I feel like every single one of you just read down all of my bullet points. So the first thing I wrote is be gentle with yourself.
You summarized.
The second thing that I wrote is have a beginner's mindset. And the third thing I wrote down is be resilient and tenacious and keep at it. I mean, literally, you're going down my list. So we as coaches, we try to make things as safe as we can. We're not perfect either, but as singers, and we have a responsibility to not only take advantage of the safe self-talk, but also be brave. Because there are going to be things that we listen to and we're going to be a little bit cringy. But if we make it into a game and explore and experiment, then we can kind of combine this safety and this bravery into a space where we're not afraid to make a mistake. And as we learn the mechanics and we allow our voice to unfold, and remember that all of this takes time. So all these questions are so amazing. And I'm thinking, okay, but that's an amazing question, and there is not a light switch answer to this. This is let's keep discovering our voice. Let's keep developing our technique and our confidence. And all of this is building block upon building block. And I know that we can all just take one more step and one more step and one more step. And then we can look back at where we came from and we can say, look how far we've come.
Absolutely. Fantastic, Kathleen. And thank you for summarizing our, yes, nice work. Michael Gellert.
Well, the theme of my talk, I think, is this theme of my all of my teaching, my coaching, and my directing, is that every voice is beautiful if it expresses the music freely and if it is honestly telling a story. That's it.
That's really wonderful, Michael. You know, your experiences and my experiences were somewhat similar. And, you know, as I was listening to all of your stories on your own personal journeys and things, I was reflecting on some of mine, and some were difficult. It took time. You know, I think that maybe there's a perception that for some people they can roll out of bed and they just sing really, really well. But I would suggest anybody who's singing really, really well has probably worked really, really hard to do it. You know, there might be some exceptions to that, but I think it's a practice. You know, we're in a practice. But there were a couple things that my teacher said to me that I think might be nice to add here, and then we're going to see. We're at 1 minute. First thing important he said to me is, one note a song does not make. So when you have that one note that goes wrong, if you can prevent yourself from getting sideswiped by it in the middle of a song and just move on, just as if it didn't happen, it will, you can fix it later, just move along, it'll be fine, okay? And the last thing I remember him saying to me was, your voice will be there when you need it. Your voice will be there when you need it. So for me, that became really important in moments of stress and trying, right before a performance where I freaked out before going on stage for something, or thought I had forgotten all my words like an actor. It'll be there when you need it would hit my mind as soon as I worried. And I never, ever had a problem because of it. And then the last piece for me is that I think this would be a sense everyone on this panel would agree with, that we believe in you before you believe in yourself. And we are all here to hold that vibration, if you will, that frequency until you get to where you want to go. And I think that is almost like the doctor's oath, right? As a voice teacher, we will hold you up and believe in you until you get to where you want to go. So I just want to say thank you to this panel. My goodness gracious, this has been fantastic. Fantastic. You all have contributed magically to what I consider to be a profound conversation. And I have to say, we must now acknowledge the team behind the screen, like, the man behind the mirror. To Sue and Vanessa, and I don't know, there they come. I was like, will they come on screen so we can see them and say hi and thank. So there she is. Thank you.
Thank you to all of you who made our job so easy. Really appreciate it.
We cannot leave though without thanking Deborah for having this held in the first place.
Deborah.
Thank you. Well, I believe it was a little bit of divine intervention, because I remember, coming for me, how do we inspire ourselves in these times? How do we face into what has become really a complete and total change of our lives? And how do we keep the flame alive of the music? How do we keep our joy, our joie de vivre, our hope, and our desire to continue to learn, grow, etc. with music? And it came to me, and I'm like, okay, who do you know? And some of you came by high recommendations from other people that I reached out to. So I just want to say thank you to you, and to those of you that are watching, that maybe you're voice teachers or you're trainers and you wanted to be a part of something like this. It's never too late. We can do more of this. We're stronger together than we are individually.